Alright everyone, we start off today talking about an age-old ADL post involving their involvement with the FBI. Link in the description, archived of course. This comes from an era prior to the latest several rounds of online censorship, so, you know, the real cancel culture, the cringe fringe rising up and trying to pressure tech sites into banning people outside of TOS, oftentimes. The FBI apparently played a beefy role in this, simply to control the narrative and to protect people's fifis, the people whose feelings are most easily broken because they are fragile mentally, they're weak and pathetic. Again, link in the description. I'm just going to read this verbatim. This is a 2014 era post. So again, this is prior to the 2016 election and my misinfo, my medical disinformation, my Russia, all of these things. This comes from the bygone days back when the internet was censored, but it was less censored on social media and on vlogging sites than it tends to be now. Here's the ADL. In their own words, it's archived for a reason. You know, a lot of times when they're caught out saying things like this that are no longer convenient, internet histories get scrubbed, but archives are forever. By the way, don't use archive.org. Use archive.today or some similar archiver because the Wayback Machine has been known to scrub things for political reasons. We'll be talking about Taylor Lorenz and that later, actually. Here's the ADL. Did you know ADL trains every new FBI agent on their role as protectors of the American people and the Constitution? Well, you're saying the quiet part out loud. That's very, very interesting. You're self-admitting that the ADL plays a role in indoctrinating FBI agents. Hey, I wonder, how is it that the FBI agents went along with the deeply disturbing, deeply anti-First Amendment sentiment of their office in regards to not just Twitter, but the rest of big tech? If you think that what happened at Twitter, which has been exposed by the Twitter files, where the federal government allocated resources to coercing supposedly private sites into suspending U.S. citizens, using taxpayer money, by the way, in the process to do so, if you think that's limited to Twitter, it's just the Twitter files, oh boy, you're woefully wrong. Again, I've got insider information with regards to Google's goings-ons alone to show that they do the same thing. The algorithmic throttling, and certainly the government connection, is self-admitted on some of these sites. Meta openly acknowledges that this happens. Zuckerberg came out months ago on Joe Rogan's show and said, yeah, right coincidentally around the same time that the Hunter case broke, I got a friendly call from some FBI agents and people at the DOJ telling me to keep a weather eye out for an incoming Russian disinfo campaign. Of course, the insinuation was that it was the Hunter Biden laptop story. The legacy media and big tech basically ran with it, openly throttling the story despite the fact that there was zero evidence that it fell astray of hacked materials policy on Twitter or anything else. So I wonder, could this indoctrination play a role? I'm sure that the ADL tells them, hey, you need to uphold the First Amendment rights of citizens. You need to make sure that we uphold the concept, the philosophical premise, that all people should be able to express themselves freely in the public square. Do you really think that that's what they tell the FBI agents when they go through apparently mandatory training by the ADL, an ethnically linked, politically connected group with political bias on its mind, and you know their public posts don't exactly hide this fact? No, I'm sure that it's completely fair and above board. The fact is that government bureaus should not even be working with these groups. They are politically connected. There's kickback money that goes back and forth between them and various political factions and foreign entities. Why the fuck do they play any role with the FBI's training? This shouldn't be something that FBI agents have to go through. It should be something that's banned outright. I think that we've gotten to part of the problem. And by the way, this is part of the deep staterism that's been spoken of now for years. The fusion of government power, corporate power, and these craptivistic groups, which also work with foreign entities. They bounce money around in order to skirt campaign finance laws, tax reporting in some cases, etc. You can pay the ADL not to put a hit piece out against you. This seems to be the MO. Same is true with BLM. Hey, I just cut a $50,000 check to the leader of BLM. My business is clearly woke. See, we even put the pride flag up on our Twitter handle for a month out of the year. That makes it better. When we're using slave labor over in China for our products, that makes it demonstrably better. As we've seen, you should go by action rather than word. If we're looking at a situation where the ADL is acknowledging years ago, again, before this particular premise was considered to be particularly problematic, this is back before all of these crap-devoid groups got exposed as the political grifts that they are. If we've got the acknowledgement that they're involved with the training, and then years later we find out that those field agents were indeed violating the First Amendment rights of U.S. citizens, using taxpayer money to pay agents, higher bureau chiefs, of course, are the ones that organized it, not lower-level officials. Although I suspect that if there are any problems in the future for them, they'll throw some middle management consultant under the bus. Sort of like they did with Page and Strzok with the Steele dossier. Well, it was just these field agents had bias. We're sorry. Yeah, and the FISA process. Somehow our glorious FISA process and all of the other shit that you have to go through to get search warrants and investigations going, we took it for granted that it was true. We trust our agents. So a couple of again, middle-level, lower management at the FBI managed to get an investigation going based on foreign intel that wasn't even intel but was made by someone who was a paid disinfo agent for the Clinton campaign. Yeah, that makes, if you can be hoodwinked that easily, I guess it explains the Boston Marathon bombing and things like that. If you've got the acknowledgement that there's a connection with the ADL, and then years later you get proof, not just evidence, but outright proof of systemic bias among the people that were allocated to Twitter, and again it goes further than that. Those same agents were involved with Meta, with YouTube, probably with TikTok at this point, and many others. Don't you think that you can put two and two together and say that these things might be linked? We know the ADL stands against free speech in public. They just habitually label whatever they don't want to speak freely as a Nazi or an extremist, or this disinfo is coming from a foreign source. We have no evidence of it, but, you know, it just fucking trust us, you dumb fucks, is basically the line of the day from them. It affected the bureaucrats that are taxpayer funded. They're given legal power for investigative purposes and policing purposes to an extent as well. And this is the deep state. This is it on full display. This is what you're looking for. It's funny how few people are actually talking about it. But I guess the idea is, well, it's an old post, so, you know, nobody will care about it. Well, they will if you talk about it. I have a feeling that the clankers will be talking about this. It's an important story, because they didn't properly go back through and scrub their history of things pre-2016 that no longer hold up to scrutiny. Back then, the concept of the ADL, it's the Anti-Defamation League, so they stand against defamation. See, they're the good guys. Well, a lot of people in society, the lemmings, the soccer moms, they just took that for granted. They're taken in by linguistic slogans like clean coal, the Patriot Act, fighting disinfo. Now, none of these things actually stand for anything benevolent. They stand for malevolent things. Clean coal is just the moniker for coal that's been scrubbed a little bit more. Still a fossil fuel, not renewable. Although it's better than solar. You don't have to mind the lithium over in China using child slaves, I suppose. So, you know, frack baby frack. Patriot Act. There's nothing patriotic about it. It didn't make America safer. It didn't make us more prosperous. It didn't make us more free. It didn't uphold our freedom against the people that want to attack us and all of this bullshit. It's just sloganeering. The Anti-Defamation League engages in defamation on a regular basis. Its inception was basically ethnic in origin, and now it exists as a money sponge. And politicians love the ADL because they can always get the ADL to attack things that they don't like. Well, shit, you know, this group is trying to rally against me in this political campaign. But I bet if I make a donation, they will coincidentally identify that my opponent has ties to some white supremacist group and therefore is unelectable. Do you really think that that doesn't happen with these groups that have large audiences? Fuck, under normal circumstances, if you say, well, some content creator keeps shilling this corporation, maybe they got money or a kickback from them behind closed doors or something, yeah, that would be the suspicion. Nobody's going to call you a conspiracy theorist or hateful or wrong or evil for suggesting that. It may or may not be true, but if you have some evidence, you put it forward and say, look, there's bias here for this corporate group. He's not promoting the product because he actually likes it. Maybe he doesn't even use the protein supplement, the handmade bars of soap, the beeswax perfume, or whatever the fuck is being hawked. Maybe there's an unspoken contract. Yeah, they got a bag of Benji greens, and now all of a sudden they really, really love this particular brand of smoothie. That wouldn't be considered conspiratorial. It'd be considered fucking common sense. Yeah, okay, they took a dive. They took the money and ran. But with these groups, they're sacrosanct. We should be training the FBI to be on the wary lookout for hate speech or, whatever. Very, very interesting. We're going to help the FBI uphold the Constitution. Oh, which part of it? You don't seem to be entranced by the First Amendment, or the Second, or the Fourth. You certainly don't seem to like the idea of a fair trial. You seem to believe that is reserved only for we and not for thee. Many such NIMBYist cases, by the way. That's about all. Peace out.